Welcome to our webinar today, External and Customer Focused Leaders. We're glad that you can join us. Hopefully you've been able to fill out that assessment like Joe spoke about before. Let's start with some introductions for some people who may not be familiar with us. You just heard from Joe Folkman. He's the co-founder and president of Zenger Folkman. He is renowned in the field of psychometrics, leadership, and change. He is a consultant to some of the world's most successful organizations, a best-selling author and keynote speaker. I'm glad to have him today. I'm BreAnne Okoren. I've been with Zenger Folkman since 2010, doing research and content creation. If you listen to our podcast, The 90th Percentile, you'll hear me each week on there. And Jennifer Lambert is here. She is our senior client executive, and she will be answering all of those questions that might pop up today as you're watching this presentation in our chat. We really appreciate these questions and feedback, so be sure to ask them to her, and if she can't answer them right away, she will hopefully get back to you soon by email to answer any questions you have about the data or research that you hear today.
You know, Bree, after every webinar, Jen sends us a list of questions, and we do get back to you on those.
We do.
And even the hard questions, which I give to Jack, but yeah, we do.
Yeah. So let's get started. Customers today are hard to please, aren't they? The competition seems to be increasing each year, but what studies have shown is that if you can win the hearts of this younger generation of buyers, they are actually quite loyal. So here is a rule of thumb based on some data. It costs 5 times more to create a new customer than to retain an existing customer. But in most organizations, it makes sense to concentrate on customer acquisition and customer retention. And we sometimes lose this external focus, but we need it, because if you can consistently offer the people who already know and like your product or service an excellent experience, there are benefits, and they won't get so easily distracted by all the other companies popping up. So let's talk about a few of those benefits. Increased revenue, improved customer satisfaction, brand loyalty, reduce your churn rate, minimize costs. Those all sound amazing, but here are some of the statistics of what we're dealing with these customers. 60% of customers indicate that they have higher customer service standards than they did last year. 93% will spend more with companies that have their preferred options, and 90% will spend more with companies that customize for them. 61% say they would switch because of just one bad experience. I'm sure we've seen videos on TikTok of those bad experiences. And 74% say they will forgive a company for a mistake if the company is customer focused. Now, you can tack up platitudes of how the customer knows best on your wall or break rooms, but to really understand how to provide customers with the best experience, leaders need to better understand how to utilize this specific skill of looking externally and maintaining that customer focus at all times. Because in the wise words of Peter Drucker, quality in a service or product is not what you put into it. It's what the customer gets out of it. So Joe is going to go over how are leaders in our database doing on this skill.
Bree, it was fascinating that you get one chance.
I know.
One strike, you're out. That's a lot. That's a lot of pressure. But as we analyzed customer and external focus and the effectiveness of leaders on this, and this is from 118,000 global leaders, we found that that was relatively in the middle in terms of effectiveness. Now, you notice that the things that are at the top of the list tend to be a little bit more of the urgent and important kinds of things: drive for results, technical expertise, making decisions, right? Mm-hmm. And so midway, that's not bad. It is an important characteristic to leaders, and it has a definite impact. We also ask leaders to rate the importance of this, and it's rated a little lower, 12th. And as the reason for that is because you have the urgent and important things, those crying needs of, so you look at solves problems. Well, boy, that's well, a lot of the customer problems you have come from customers, but that seems to be more important, communicates powerfully, those kinds of things, but it's still relatively important. So it is a critical issue for almost every organization, and it has an impact. One of the things we wondered was, gosh, if you were customer oriented as a leader and you were great at dealing with customers, would that impact the engagement of your employees? And what you see here is a study of 104,000 leaders, where we looked at a leader's effectiveness on customer and external focus and the employee engagement scores. And you notice that if you're in the first to the ninth percentile on customer and external focus, you're only at the 25th percentile on employee engagement from your team members. But again, you can see that as you improve on that, the engagement goes up. So this is a driver of engagement. We've known that for a long time. Now, if you look back in history, in 1998, Rucci, Kern, and Quinn wrote a very popular Harvard Business School article. The title of the article was "The Employee Customer Profit Chain at Sears." And what they did is they went into Sears and looked at the customer experience. And boy, we can talk about the customer experience. I mean, you might have gone into a store sometime and tried to find a salesperson, you couldn't find them, or when you found them, especially in some places, you go, "Where are these?" And they go, "It's on that side of the store, go over there," and they don't know. Or they've said aisle 12 halfway down, or they walk you to where the things are and say, "Well, do you have questions about these?" And it's interesting, what they found in their study was, if you could increase employee satisfaction by 5 points, that drove up customer satisfaction by 1.3%, which in turn grew the profits by 0.5%. And some people look at 0.5 and they say, well, that's not much profit. In retail, that is a lot of profit, right? They work on very small margins. Now, that was a very popular study. And as we looked at it, we thought we would add one element to that, and that is leadership. Because in our research, we found that the number one factor affecting the engagement of employees is the effectiveness of the leader. And so we would add to the model leadership effectiveness impacts engagement, which impacts customer experience, which impacts profits and success. And we think that's the model. Now, to verify that, we did a study where we had data from 81 leaders, small study, but what we had in this database was 360 assessments of a leader's effectiveness, and connected that to the customer satisfaction ratings. And what we found was this curve. We found that the poorest leaders had the lowest level of customer satisfaction, and the best leaders had the highest level. Now, we also looked at employee engagement and saw that it followed that same path, that employee engagement was really connected to the customer satisfaction. And as you think about that, these two elements go together. And so as we look at, for instance, the effectiveness of leaders in terms of their direct reports experience with customer focus and your ability to be focused on customers, the percentage of direct reports willing to go the extra mile. And one of the things that you need to keep a customer satisfied is a direct report who's willing to go the extra mile. The worst leaders, those with the lowest scores on that, were only had 15% of their direct reports who were willing to go the extra mile. The best had 66% of their direct reports. And again, one of the things that really frustrates customers is when their favorite salesperson leaves. And there's a connection between your ability to retain talent and your a leader's ability on customer and external focus. And you can see the worst leaders, 47% of their direct reports were thinking about quitting, and the best only had 14%. So there's a strong correlation there. We also did another study where we looked at who got the highest scores on customer. And it wasn't a great surprise to find that top management had the highest ratings on customer focus. They think about customers every day, but you can see as we go into the organization, those scores go down, with the supervisors at the 44th percentile and individual contributors at the 45th percentile. So their effectiveness tends to go down as their level goes down. We also found some functions in the organization that had the highest scores. I was surprised that legal was the highest there, 56th percentile, general management, and then customer service, sales, and operations. You'd expect that. They're getting the highest scores, but look who's getting the lowest scores on their customer focus. It's facilities management, manufacturing, HR, engineering, and information technology. And these are the groups where they're distant from the customer, but they really need to understand the needs and the frustrations of customers. And so that's a challenge for them. And they need to kind of look at that and find ways to get closer to the customer.
So this is an interesting aspect of, okay, our focus. One of the main responsibilities that leaders have is to direct attention where it needs to go. That's why you have a leader. And there's so many distractions. There's so much information out there. 40 years ago, the Nobel Prize winning economist Herbert Simon said, he predicted this situation that we have right now. He said, information consumes the attention of its recipients. Hence, a wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. And that's what we're dealing with right now, is a poverty of attention. Think about what leaders face internally. You'll see on the slide there, their job responsibilities, the performance of others, the problems, the goals and deadlines and fires that they have to put out every day. How do they make the time to look outside the organization and see what their competition is doing, what their customers are doing with their product, how they use their product? There's so many things. So how do we do both at the same time? Daniel Goleman said, if great leadership were a paint by numbers exercise, then great leaders would be a lot more common. Don't we wish it were a paint by numbers, but it's not. But what we know is that practically every form of focus can be strengthened. This is possible. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, and it can be done by understanding what behaviors will help you direct that focus. So hopefully you've had the opportunity to take that self-assessment we talked about at the beginning of this webinar and see where your focus is currently going. And Joe is going to explain a little bit more about that.
So on the self-assessment, we measured whether you have more of an internal focus or an external focus. Now, again, you'd expect that people that deal with customers a lot have more of an external focus, but external focus goes beyond customers. It's thinking about competitors and what other people are doing and best practices. It's the ability to look outside of your immediate problems and issues and frustrations and all the stuff that's going on to sort of say, what's going on outside this organization? I remember years ago when I used to ride my bike up the canyon and I was pedaling along and I'd say, wow, I am really killing it here. I am moving so fast and this is great. And I think that until somebody passed me like I was standing still, right? And that's when you have an external perspective. So the scores here go from -10, that's an internal perspective. Now, if you got a low score, and I looked at the data, there's a bunch of tens, -10s in there. That just says you're consumed with internal problems. You're focused on, and good for you. That's what your attention is held on. If you have a plus number, then you tend to be more externally focused. And we're all pulled both ways. This is a very difficult process. So in this case, this person got a -2. And so they tend to be a little bit internally focused. Now, if you look at your score on that and you think, well, does this mean anything? We actually found when we compared in a sample of 200 leaders where we had 360 assessments made, that when you got a low score, a negative score, your external focus, customer focus score was at the 49th percentile. In the mid-range, it was at the 57th percentile. But if you were +4 to +10, you had a higher score in the 66th percentile. That's our validation for this assessment. And basically, it shows you that your score on this actually predicts your score on the 360 pretty good. I mean, there's a fairly strong correlation here. So we also looked at some items or some competencies where there were significant correlations. And you can see 3 competencies where, you know, external or internal focus is effective. And these are the competencies where having an external focus is very helpful. Innovation. I mean, as you think about innovation, a lot of the ideas come outside the organization. Strategic perspective. What are my competitors doing? What's going on in the industry? What's happening outside the organization? Champion change. Customers are going to be the major source of change in an organization. Most of the time, we wouldn't change at all if we didn't have to, but customers force us to. The last one is communicates powerfully. People that scored better on communicates powerfully were thinking about how's this message going to be received, what happens outside the organization. So those are 4 competencies where this is really critical. We also looked at how important customer and external focus was in terms of increasing the effectiveness of other competencies. So once again, strategic perspective and champions change were very much affected by your ability to have a strong customer focus. Now, when we looked at this data set where we had 81 sales leaders, and again, we looked at external customer focus, and we looked at customer satisfaction ratings, we found again the validation that doing this well affects the satisfaction of customers. So we think this is a really critical competency. It's especially critical if you're dealing with customers in your life.
So you might be thinking, all right, what can I do to stay focused externally, to think about my customers? And, you know, there are some solutions that you may come up with, like we talked about before. You could always put that quote on the wall to remind people, or you could send out a monthly message as a reminder, customers are our main focus. We love our customers. Or you could just talk about it when you have a performance review. None of those options really seem like they're really going to take hold or be that effective. So we need to go beyond them. Luckily, we looked at leaders in our database who had mastered their ability to maintain an external and customer focus. We looked at what did they do differently and found 5 strength building behaviors that enabled this customer and external focus. We call these linked behaviors strength builders because they have this unique ability to build this particular strength. So we're going to take you through each of these 5 behaviors and how to use them to support your efforts to direct attention to your customers and externally and maintain that. So the first one is develop strategic perspective. By focusing on the strategic vision that you have, leaders can see the importance of understanding their customers, the external environment, and their connection to the organization's success. It feels so good to be on a familiar path, but if you're really going to set yourself apart and provide the product or service that customers really want and need, your strategy may need to be pulled in a new direction. And one great example of this that can really help you to imagine how to shift gears is if you look at the diet industry. So back in 1961, a 37-year-old Jean Nidetch, who had been overweight most of her life, she was discouraged by all this years of fad dieting. She had tried the pills and hypnosis and all of the fad programs, and all of it. Eventually, she regained the weight back. So she decided she was going to go full in. She did this prudent diet and lost 20 pounds. But then when her motivation started lacking, she started getting together with all of her friends that were women and talking about her struggles with weight loss, and they opened up and shared theirs, and pretty soon she started these regular meetings to share recipes and talk about what people were doing to lose weight. These meetings were so engaging and so effective that these friends started telling their friends, and pretty soon the popularity spread. Until one day, Jean's friend said, "You need to make this into an actual business." And in 1963, Nidetch finally launched Weight Watchers, which you've probably heard of. Nidetch understood that to successfully lose weight required a strategy that supported customers every step of the way. And what was out there, the products that were out there, were not doing that. That was not a part of their company's focus. So think about it. Is your strategy focused on your customer's experience? Pay attention and understand those needs and focus your strategy in ways that can support them better. What's next, Joe?
Well, a lot of times when you look at your strategy, you find that it isn't focused.
True.
And this requires some change. And I said this before, but customers are the source of a lot of change. I mean, if you think about how do we keep up with the customers and how do we make sure that they're satisfied, new technologies come along, customer expectations increase, competitors come in the market.
Yeah.
And if you think about all the things that can go wrong, it requires an organization to be flexible, to be agile, and to change and adapt to customers. A good example of that was a organization that provided these 50-gallon drums to their customer, and they were doing a good business. Everything was going along fine. The customer kept buying drums, and then a salesperson ended up visiting the customer. And as they sat down with the customer and talked to them about their needs, what they found out was they were putting a substance in these 50-gallon drums that if there were empty spaces on top of that, or if there was air that was in the drum, it actually, what the substance spoiled. And so what the customer was saying, gee, a lot of times we only need a 30-pound or 30-gallon drum. And so what quickly that organization started to manufacture a 30-gallon drum that really fit the customer's needs, which made a lot of difference to the customer and really gained them the visibility, and they satisfied that customer. You can think about this in your own organization. Are we agile? Are we quick to change? Do we understand the needs of customers? As we think about all this disruption that's going on in the industry, disruption occurs when somebody else comes up to satisfy a need that you're not. So to avoid disruption, you need to think about who's going to disrupt us and what can we do to change and make our organization help customers really satisfy their needs better.
The next strength builder that will really help you to maintain that external customer focus, of course, is inspiring others. A leader who radiates enthusiasm and excitement for the business and can emotionally connect to their customers makes a difference. And a customer that you inspire is a customer that you will keep. I saw a great example of this the other day. One of our former ZF people, Natasha Beach, she shared a story on her LinkedIn of an experience she had with a Kroger delivery. She said that Chantel, this wonderful delivery driver, took the time to ring her doorbell and make sure that she was home when she delivered her groceries. And next, she saw the crepe myrtle in her front yard and that it was struggling and gave her some tips. and she thanked her for her business. And then when she went inside and unloaded her groceries, Natasha said she found a note with a Tootsie Pop attached. And the whole experience was so positive to her that she went on LinkedIn, she shared it in a post. That post went viral, and Chantel, the delivery driver's manager, saw it. Now, when he saw that post, he contacted Natasha and asked her if she would come down and deliver an award to Chantel that they give out called the Every Customer Every Time Award. And you can see that this is a picture of her delivering this recognition award to this driver. I thought that was amazing how this manager took the time and went the extra mile to recognize this employee for the amazing customer service that she provided. There was a Gallup poll that only 1 in 4 employees strongly agree that they've received recognition for the work that they've done. Only 1 in 4. Can you imagine if we doubled that? If people truly were recognized for their good work, how inspiring that would be. So this is an example of inspiring in action, how recognizing that customer effort makes a difference and helps you to remain customer focused.
Bree, I think we're going to start giving away Tootsie Pops with every feedback report.
Definitely.
That would work.
The missing piece.
The next strength builder is communicating powerfully. And this ability to communicate ends up being a competency that is the easiest to improve, but so often overlooked. As you think about messages that are sent to customers, oftentimes they sound a lot like Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, 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 wah. You know, they aren't inspiring, they aren't exciting, they aren't, they don't capture the attention. They're just sort of bland, boring messages. And if you can improve your communications, if you can pop them up to the next level, it's going to make a difference. And I was thinking about this. I found a couple of organizations where they'd really done an amazing job in terms of communicating. So the first one was an organization, it's the Australian Post, where they sent out a message, if you really want to touch someone, send them a letter. And as you look at that advertisement there, boy, that what an amazing image. That just captures people. And it's really stimulating. Another one was from the World Wildlife Fund, where they had an image of an elephant kind of disappearing and turning into dust, and really brought out the attention to the crisis of wildlife and the needs that they have. So as you think about what can I do to really improve the level of communication and the power of our communication, both with customers and internally, that makes a big difference in your ability to be effective at customer focus. Another thing that you might keep in mind is there's 2 things you can do in communications that really make a difference with relationships. And so if you're out there and you're thinking, how do I really improve my relationship with my customers? Number 1 way, listen. I mean, really listening, we've found, has a profound effect on the relationship you have with others. And for salespeople, oftentimes they do a good job of talking, but oftentimes they don't listen enough. The other thing you can do is recognize others. Some people feel like you can recognize people too often, but I've never seen that. I think if we can find opportunities to recognize our customers, to recognize internally our people that deal with customers, that really has a difference and makes a difference. So those 2 skills can have an incredibly positive impact. What's next, Bree?
Well, as you're looking at ways to maintain that focus, you're going to have to establish some stretch goals to get there. Those who are highly effective at setting and achieving stretch goals often have this clear picture of their customers' wants and needs. They successfully use customer knowledge to set meaningful goals that will improve their experience. Customer loyalty depends, if you think about it, and your experiences on how easy you make it for customers to do business with you. And I have a terrifying stat for you. Notably, 96% who had high effort experiences reported disloyalty to the organization. But 9% of customers with low effort experiences reported disloyalty. So if you can make it an easy experience, it makes a difference. I found a great example of this the other day. Brandon Carson, who used to was in charge of sales trainings at Apple back in the day. He said that they never sold their products based on specs to people. They didn't talk about storage space or processor speed or all those things that normal people don't really understand. Instead, they connected to their customers by asking them, what do you want to do? What do you need to do with this product? So if the person wanted to send photos to their grandkids, they'd show them how to do it on an iPhone. Then they'd give them the product and show them how easy it was to do it. He said, Apple taught me that selling technology is never about product features and the specifications. It's always about what the person wants to do. It's a simple process of ensuring that you always place the focus on the customer and what they value the most. So we need to stretch ourselves to make these customer experiences easy and effortless. And this probably will mean that we will need to adjust your processes or invest in newer technology or self-service channels, but your efforts to go the extra mile will not go unnoticed by those customers.
So it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And this is one of the areas where people they don't like it, right? It's like, yeah, but that's the reality. Is it's going to be difficult and you need to really stretch. In our self-assessment, we went through those 5 strength builders, and we had you score yourself on your effectiveness at these 5 strength builders. So you might have a low score. 2.5 is a low score. A high score would be 4.0. So you can kind of see which of these I'm doing well on and which might I be kind of not so great on. We also had you score yourself on customer focus and how effective you are at customer and external focus. So some of the questions focus directly on the customer, and other questions focus on the extent to which you tend to be internally or externally focused. As you think about what to do, and what we'd like everybody to think about on this webinar today is, rather than just sit back and sort of take in all the insights here, we'd like you to think about what you could do to improve your effectiveness on this critical competency. So what we found when we researched thousands of leaders is, if you had a fatal flaw in any one of these 5 characteristics, if you were terrible, and that would be a low score, then your effectiveness would be at the 29th percentile. Let's say that you said, no, well, I'm going to try to get better. I'm going to improve my effectiveness. If 1 is above average, 2, 3, 4, you can see there's a gradual improvement in your effectiveness on customer if you just become above average. Now, if you know anything about Folkman, what we believe in is strength building. And so what we discovered is, a lot of times people look to these 5 things and they say, well, I need to be good at every one of them. Well, you can't have a fatal flaw in any one of them. But another approach is to be really good at one of them, because if you're really good at one, just one, you actually get to the 73rd percentile, in 2, 82nd percentile. If you're really good at 3 of them, you're at the 88th percentile on customer focus. And that's the idea, strength building. And so what we'd invite you to do is think about, which one of these could I be really good at? And Bree, give us some advice about how to choose.
Yeah. And to not overwhelm you, but think about one thing You can do one thing. I listen to a lot of podcasts all the time. I hear such great things. I learn a lot, and then I don't do anything about it. So we are telling you today that instead of just learning, having this be a learning event, decide that you're actually going to work on this. So first ask yourself, do I have a fatal flaw in any of these strength building behaviors? The second thing is to consider, would improving that behavior, one of these five, have a significant positive impact on my performance in my current job? It could be that one of these fits your job pretty well and would really help you. And the third thing to consider is, are you passionate about improving this behavior? We found that if it's something you kind of want to get better about, you want to be known for, then you are actually going to do something about it and you are going to change. So consider those three things. Now, we always enjoy doing a poll with all of our people on the webinar to see which of our audience members, what they will choose to work on. So you'll see that pop up there. We have develop strategic perspective, champion change, inspire others, communicate powerfully, establish stretch goals. Joe, which one do you think most people will choose this
I
time?
know what they won't choose. They won't choose stretch goals.
They won't.
Nobody wants a stretch goal except for you, Bree.
I
Except for
do.
you.
I do. I'll choose it.
You say, what's the most difficult thing I can do? You choose that. I communicates powerfully. Well, inspires. That's a great one.
No, that is a
They're
good
all
one.
good
I'm
things.
going to go for champions change. Let's see,
Oh,
Gary,
okay.
if you'll show us what are the results of the poll. Oh, you were right. Communicate powerfully. But I think you bumped up the stretch goal one with your egging people on.
Oh, there you go. That's true. Yeah.
Well, one of the most valuable resources we have that we give out in these sessions is our development guide. So be sure to fill out the exit survey so that you can have access to it. This guide will help you make a plan for this for the strength builder that you chose. It'll give you a detailed instructions of ideas and ways that you can use this to be better at external and customer focus. It's very valuable, so be sure to fill out that survey at the end. We will end with a quote by Kate Zabrinsky, the president of Business Training Works. She said, "The customer's perception is your reality." I hope this also reminds you to look to your customers to motivate and inspire you to keep doing what you're doing. A few years ago, I followed the journey of a young fashion designer who dreamed of creating a small collection of dresses that launched monthly. Now, she partnered with someone who was very experienced in the fashion industry, and her vision took off quickly and it was really successful. And within the first year, her partner started pressuring her to do more beyond the dresses and introduce more different clothing items. And he wanted to continuously repeat designs because it was cheaper. And slowly, this vision that she had was being lost, and the tension and problems internally became too much. There was so much chaos that when the pandemic hit, she decided to close shop and sell off the rest of the stock and just be done. In response, her customers who loved and valued her products and were sad to see them go formed online buy sale trade groups to exchange with each other the now rare dresses. Now, the owner found one of these dress groups. She saw thousands of posts of women wearing her creations to weddings, baby showers, communions, family pictures, engagements, trips to Europe, date nights out, and even office presentations. Amidst all of the hardship from the internal chaos and issues, as she connected once again with her customers, she was reminded of why she did it. And she took the time to thank these women for their continued passion for her creations. Let your customers give you purpose and drive. Yes, there will always be customers who drive you nuts, but don't let the troublemakers spoil your connections with the ones who really care about what you're putting out in the world. If you feel like your organization is struggling to maintain this external focus, or if you're feeling disconnected from your customers, we want to help. And we have a special offer for this competency session of customer and external focus. You can see there, if you want to bring this development experience to your organization, to your leaders, led by Dr. Joseph Folkman, there's an exclusive discount of $5,000 for up to 25 participants. The standard fee is $7,500. You can also go to our website to look at our microlearning sessions. We cover all of the 19 differentiating leadership competencies. And so you can mix and match different sessions like inspiring and motivating and drives for results and many others if you go onto the website and look. Now, these sessions must be scheduled by July 1st of 2023 to take advantage of this offer. If you're interested, you can indicate on that exit survey that will launch once the webinar is finished. We love feedback. Yes, we do. An exit survey will launch when we conclude this webinar. We'd love to hear from you. You can see that link right there, that bit.ly link. You can click, it's in the chat as well. So upon completion, you will receive the customer and external focus Strength Builder Development Guide. Thank you so much for participating today, and we hope you will join us next month for the next leadership webinar.